सेव किया था ना?
मैं सिर्फ इसलिए गया था क्योंकि उसने मुझे कॉल किया. That's it. But listen though.
Save it for someone else.
जिंदगी में सेव करना जरूरी है, मगर जब बात पैसों की हो, सिर्फ सेविंग से काम नहीं चलेगा. इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए और अपने सेविंग्स को आगे बढ़ने का मौका दीजिए.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Hi, I'm Praveen Swami, and welcome to this week's edition of Crosshairs, the show where, as you know, we discuss all things national and regional security. We're joined today by my colleague Suchet Singh and by Dr Ayesha Siddiqa, expert writer on the Pakistan military and regional security issues, and of course, a columnist at ThePrint. Thank you for joining us from London, Dr Ayesha. My first question to you would be your column this week in ThePrint paints a quite grim picture of the way the Tehreek-e-Taliban is resurgent again in Pakistan. We've all been hearing about this cycle of violence escalating since the fall of the Taliban in Kabul. I guess my first question would be, how could the Inter-Services Intelligence Directorate and the Pakistan military, who have worked so long with the Taliban and with various other actors in Afghanistan, how could these guys get it so horribly wrong?
In some ways, when you're occupied with so many things, you get it wrong. I mean, to be fair to the Inter-Services Intelligence and the Pakistan Army, when 9/11 came, despite all the evidence, even the CIA couldn't get things right. And the problem here is that this army, Pakistan Army, was completely bogged down, bogged down on the issue of domestic politics. So that was, that had caught their attention a bit more than it should have. There are a lot of people in the army who support Imran Khan. There was this issue of who's going to be the next army chief. And, it's just been a month that we got a new army chief, but the army chief is also distracted. Now, meanwhile, and also do not forget that in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, which borders on the tribal areas, and where a lot of these, Taliban are concentrated there, and Taliban have been getting extortion money from people even in Peshawar, which is the capital of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. Now, the problem was that in that province, you have government of Imran Khan, who is supported by the Taliban and who has, politically supported Taliban and always said that there shouldn't be operations against Taliban and there should be talk with the Taliban. So there was everything which slowed the military and the ISI down. Not to forget that over these years, there has been quite a sympathy for the Taliban. The state policy, the army's policy has been that Taliban are they should be the government in Kabul. So between that larger macro policy and the small tidbits here and there, tactical issues, Taliban, not just emerged, but they have started hitting back. The TTP, let's not also forget that they are enjoying the windfall of Afghan Taliban making the government again in Kabul. So they say, all right, fine. If they've had victory, why can't we have victory in Pakistan? And Pakistan's tribal
I'm sorry to interrupt, but wasn't the whole idea that the Afghan Taliban was tied up or had a lot of influence over the TTP, that the rise of the Afghan Taliban would make sure the TTP was quietened down or accommodated or behaved itself? You had General Faiz Hamid, then the chief of the ISI, making this triumphal visit to Kabul and saying, if I remember correctly, all will be good, everything will be fine. was there information wrong, or was their understanding of the Taliban's motives wrong? What did they get wrong?
It was like the same policy of the since 1996. Taliban are right. We have an issue. We can sort it out. Let's not push them too hard. Things get sorted out. But mind you, while all this negotiation was happening, I mean, it has never happened before that General Faizami, apparently, I mean, the two sides of the story. One is that General Bajwa gave him the file of the Taliban and said, you take care of it. The other is he actually walked away from the position of DGISI to Corps Commander Peshawar, but with the file, taking the file with him. And never had it happened in so many years, even since the 1990s, that the ISI, it wasn't the ISI chief, the Corps Commander, who was handling the Taliban. So, there was that confusion. So while this Taliban policy, while they were getting their heads around it, there was this Faiz Hamid Bajwa scuffle via Imran Khan also happening. So who was playing what? That's anybody's guess.
Dr. Siddiqa, your column last week even mentions even the angle of the groups from Balochistan, and to the extent that even they have been sort of separatist groups in Balochistan giving support to the TTP, or at least alleging that they want to support them. So to what extent can this situation escalate or snowball even further? Where do you see it going from here with the Balochistan angle specifically?
There's going to be more violence, of course, because the government forces are going to crack down. They are cracking down. They're fighting back. One thing what has happened is that the two things happening side by side. One is that the Baloch youth and generally the Baloch people no longer have faith in the state and a relationship with it. Of course, you have Baloch who are sitting in the parliament, Baloch who benefit from the state and therefore with the state. But a lot of people, and definitely youth, who are unhappy and who are willing to fight. I mean, the disappearances have increased to a degree where the youth are saying that what are we going to get? I mean, from what I know is that there are even officers within the military, within the army, who have written about it, who have said that we cannot keep on pursuing this policy of picking up and disappearing people. Yet, when the time comes, that thought doesn't kind of translate into a policy, into a positive policy of a political solution for Balochistan. So there is one. So my fear is that the greater skepticism that you will have, the more people will, although I would say that Baloch remain, what you broadly define as secular. That is one of the reasons that they are not even supporting the Iranian Deobandi movement in Zahedan, in Iranian Balochistan. There the movement is kind of couched in the religious Deobandi movement, but they're not, the Pakistani separatists, Baloch separatists are not supporting that. Yet there is this possibility of some of the groups joining the TTP, and of course in the process lose their secularism or the secular identity. But then it's measuring between two things, whether you remain true to your ideology or true to your fight.
I just wanted to say, in the context of the question Suchet asked about escalating violence levels and where this goes, there's some extraordinary data out from the Center for Research and Security Studies in Rawalpindi this week, which estimates Pakistani military fatalities in just this year at 280 or so, and that's roughly 6 times as many as in India. This seems to be all the more remarkable because Pakistan had brought levels of violence down from 2009, the last time it faced an insurgency of this kind. For quite a long time, there was a downward trend. Again, to return to this question, was this a miscalculation? Did Pakistan's military believe the TTP would be less lethal had it been? Has a victory been frittered away by the military?
I think they miscalculated. They didn't think that the TTP would come back with such passion. Secondly, I think historically they've also not calculated. How do you interpret Islamism amongst the Taliban? See, firstly, the problem is that Pakistan's Afghan policy is so also clouded by an ethnic bias. I mean, I'm sorry to say that since 92, 93, there's not been, I don't think there's been any Pashtun head of inter-services intelligence. So understanding what is Pashtun culture, I mean, maybe, whatever the boss said, the head of ISI would kind of make it happen. So one could argue that because it's a very disciplined, professionally structured army. So it doesn't matter whoever is head of the ISI. But I would say that, the ethnic composition of the ISI would make some difference. So one, I would hate to say, but Punjabis don't understand other cultures other than their own. So probably they've misunderstood. They've completely misunderstood, what is Pashtun Wali. They always think that Islamism is very much part of that. So that's one. The other is that they feel that if Islamism is what the Pashtuns want, if it's part of them, then let them have it. It doesn't make any difference. I mean, I remember, and as I mentioned in the article as well, as I mentioned that I remember 2008-9 when this is around right before Savat operations. I was interviewing, General Zauddin Butt, who was made army chief by Nawaz Sharif for a few hours, or a few days before Musharraf coup of October 99 happened. But what we forget that he was a good, successful, a head of ISI with a successful record. So he served that. They were talking, and he started discussing that Pakistan's comparative advantage or disadvantage versus India. And I asked him, I said, yes, it's worrying because now we also have Taliban sitting inside. There were Taliban in Swat then, and we're threatened from inside. He said, no, that's not a problem. I said, what do you mean it's not a problem? He said, because all we need to do is let them implement Sharia there and, disconnect it from the rest of the country. So I'm assuming that if he, as a former chief for a few hours, and an ISI chief was thinking that, it was not just him, there were others thinking that as well. So there has been that problem that, the attitude towards Sharia, its implementation, and the attitude towards Pashtun, the two things which I think they've repeatedly got it wrong.
Talking about the Pashtuns and the attitude of the ISI or the army towards them, then what sort of recourse does the Pakistan government have? Do they now go in for like an operation like Arbe-Azab again, or do they look at, as you mentioned, they had merged the FATA districts with Khyber Pakhtunkhwa? Do they look at maybe changing something like that to cater to TTP's demands, perhaps?
No. I think there has to be, some kinetic response. some, but it has to be accompanied with a broad-based talks, not with the TTP, but with Afghan Taliban. Because I don't think this is a war which Pakistan Army can fight any longer. Because if you open up, open up the front too much, expand it too much, you really run a risk of opening the front to an extent. I mean, look, 2000, when was it? 2016, 17, by that time, all these suicide attacks in Islamabad has stopped. Pakistan had started to breathe again. And now, look what's happening. I mean, we've had one suicide attack, which has killed one police official in the suburbs of Islamabad. Terrorism could start again. And if that happens, along with the kind of economic conditions that Pakistan is facing, I don't think that this is what Pakistan Army or the Pakistan state can really withstand. So it has to be careful negotiations, and mind you, all the actors have to come together on one page. I know right now, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto has said no conversation. I mean, this is with the Taliban, no conversation with terrorists. Fair enough. I mean, we have to make it very clear: are we talking about the TTP as terrorists, or are we talking about Afghan Taliban? Because we will have to talk to Afghan Taliban. They are fairly dependent on Pakistan, and Pakistan has to do very sharp and very intelligent negotiation. How will it happen? I don't think it means sending Hina Rabbani Khar. I mean, I know this is something which will make a lot of feminists unhappy, this statement by me. I know it will make a lot of people in Pakistan's Foreign Office unhappy. And I think that Hina Rabbani Khar herself is a brilliant Minister of State for Foreign Affairs. But the point is that if you have to negotiate with the Taliban, with the Afghan Taliban, and not on their wicket, not on your own, it's not a battle which Pakistan can win. So they feel that they have an advantage. Then to make them appreciate that losing it for Pakistan, losing it will not be beneficial for both. I think you will have to have some respect for their tradition. I mean, I'm told that Afghan Taliban were not excited by, Pakistan sending a woman to talk to them. Yeah, one can say that, Pakistan is a sovereign state and can send whoever, but I think you have to see, who's on more dominant here, and how do you begin to negotiate and convince them, to respect Pakistan's territorial sovereignty and its integrity.
So I'd like to push you a little further on that, because some people would argue that there's nothing that you can do to make the Taliban change its mind. After all, on the 2 or 3 issues on which the world community sort of really laid down some red lines: the education of women, the creation of some kind of inclusive government, respect for basic human rights. The Taliban proved completely unwilling to make any sort of progress towards meeting commitments they had made. Increasingly, this small group of hardliners around Mullah Hibatullah, the overall chief, seem to be controlling more and more policy decisions. Is there any realistic prospect at all that Hina Rabbani Khar or anyone else will be able to make any progress with these guys? Because after all, these guys are not conceding anything to anyone. They seem quite mired in an internal power struggle. And if they meant to keep the promises they made to Pakistan and to others in the world community before capturing Kabul, surely we would have seen some steps towards it. After all, the opposite is happening.
Well, see, the problem is that, when the Americans had the Doha agreement signed, I don't know why did they think? I mean, there was really a good faith saver for America to get out of Afghanistan, was ready to get out of Afghanistan. They just wanted an agreement so that it could get out of Afghanistan. I don't think Americans cared at all about whether, Taliban did meet the promises. And so it would be a bonus if they started to actually do it. So, you could start then releasing some money here and there. So, but the point is that Pakistan has what it can depend on is a long relationship. And in this relationship, where they have some understanding, where they can argue that, we're on the same side, we're not pushing you to change this, that, and the other. Pakistan is saying that, it keeps telling the world that, help the Afghans, they will do it, you make them do it. But I don't think that from the word, from the starting line, the Afghan Taliban ever intended to, pursue these goals of educating women, etc. Let's not get confused what dotted line they signed on, but what they intended to do. Because Mullah Umar, if you look at the comparative leadership, Mullah Umar was a village mullah. These ones now who are in charge are trained in Sharia and they actually believe in it. They're much more hardline as far as ideology is concerned. So they always intended to follow their own rules rather than, listen to the world. The other thing is that, for them, it doesn't matter. The money is coming. There is drug money. There is money, Pakistan, Afghan, Iranian border. I mean, these are hubs of smuggling. So some money is coming in. It's not as if they are entirely starving. And plus, they're probably not feeding. They're not like those governments who have to satisfy the vote bank and say, they're going to vote for me, so I have to please my constituency.
So talking about within the Taliban, which factions could have some control over what the TTP does? Would it be the Haqqanis? Does it make sense for the Pakistan military and establishment to focus on them, perhaps Sirajuddin Haqqani himself?
Sirajuddin Haqqani is supposed to be Pakistan Army's friend, and he's very close to them. So it's not that. Problem is that within the Haqqani network, within the Taliban, the larger group, there seems to be some tension going on between Sirajuddin Haqqani at the moment and the Kandhari Taliban sitting in Kabul. And the problem being that, since Ayman al-Zawahiri got killed, they are pointing a finger at Sirajuddin Haqqani and saying, you were supposed to take care of the security, you didn't. So, it's like you're less of a man. So in order to probably kind of present himself as a stronger guy, he's probably, and right now it's very interesting that the TTP is sitting in southeastern regions which are under Haqqani control. So the question which comes to mind is what is happening between Haqqani and the ISI? Is it a deeper difference, which I don't think there is? Then is it tactical? How is it going to get sorted out?
Praveen, you're muted.
A final question, Dr. Ayesha, which this whole story began in some ways, Pakistan's involvement in Afghanistan, as a riposte or an answer to the problem Pakistan had with India, this whole conception of strategic depth, the need to control a critical neighbor. You had Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's government propping up various people in Kabul, helping in insurgency. Again, the 90s, this coming up. This time around, given that Pakistan has suffered so much as at the hands of proxies it cultivated over the years, how do you see this whole Kashmir part of the equation playing out? Will the army now keep quiet on Kashmir, back away, try and stoke down what used to be called non-state actors in the old days? Or will it again try and divert some jihadi attention back onto the Kashmir issue and take the heat of itself? How do you see this playing out?
See, I think that they will remain, I mean, that policy will remain where it is, where General Bajwa left it, which is peace at the line of control and control of domestic jihadis, because domestic jihadis, then the problem gets even bigger. And as we noticed that recently in Khanewal, which is South Punjab, a city of South Punjab, one ISI personnel and I think another police personnel, they both got killed by militants, by terrorists who are connected with Daesh. Now, it's not, and I know because I have researched in this area, I've studied extremism and militancy in South Punjab, definitely. And what one sees is that these areas, these cities used to be hub of Harkatul Mujahideen, of Jaish-e-Mohammed, other groups. So, and a lot of groups, a lot of people who now have little to do might get tempted to join the Afghans. This is where the battle is. I don't think that Pakistan Army would actually like to kind of go and kind of divert it to Kashmir. It's not doable. It's going to be repeating the same thing. And, Pakistan is just bought out of Qatif. It badly needs to breathe financially. I don't think that it would want to get back to that policy. You may get leaks here and there, but right now the threat is inside Pakistan, not its ability to, as a state, push it towards India.
So thank you very much again for taking time to join Crosshairs today out of your busy schedule in London. I know we've had scheduling problems because of the time zone difference. Suchet Veer Singh, thank you for joining us today. Again, I know you've been busy with stories and a ton of work, including a fabulous story we hope to be discussing with all of you in the next episode. And thank you most of all for listening in to all our viewers. And we look forward to joining you again next weekend with the next issue of Crosshairs.